14th day of October 2022. Please rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please be seated. Madam Clerk, would you call the roll?
Supervisor Schneiderman.
Here.
Councilwoman McNamara.
Councilwoman McNamara has an excused absence.
Councilman Martell.
Present.
Councilman Bouvier.
Councilman Bouvier has an excused absence.
Councilman Schiavone.
Present.
All right, so we do have a quorum. This meeting had been rescheduled. It wasn't supposed to happen on Friday. People had things that they had already committed to. And we did move it because, as everybody is aware, yesterday was the funeral for our beloved Chief Stephen Skrzynecki. I was able to attend, as well as the other town board members here today, as well as Councilwoman McNamara. It was very moving. It was a tough day for us. His son, who's also a police detective sergeant in Nassau, his son Scott Skrzynecki did a really beautiful job eulogizing his father, and the service was really fitting and well put together. I think the chief would have been proud of all the details, the flyovers, the participation by so many different law enforcement agencies, the pipe and drum bands, who I know Chief was a master drummer, a marching band drummer, and taught a lot of those drummers how to play those parts. So I was able to go to the interment as well at Pine Lawn Cemetery. It was emotionally very hard day. We lost a great man in Chief Skrzynecki. His impact here will be long-reaching, I believe. Not only transforming the department, but really the community in terms of being the face of law enforcement and the outreach into the community. The level of communication and trust that we now enjoy because of his efforts, and the sense of pride in policing within the department and the commitment to public safety was shaped very much by his leadership. And for me, the 6 years I got to work with him, I'll certainly cherish for the rest of my days. I feel like I learned so much. His whole approach to problem solving and community policing and discipline, but also his deep compassion, and devotion to public safety. I'm going to miss him personally, but it's a loss for the whole community. And I got to meet his son. I got to meet his daughter. I saw his life partner, Marianne. I shared condolences on behalf of the town with all of them. His brother as well. And I'm going to work with Captain Kiernan and the department and the family on doing something locally. This was over in Amityville yesterday, and we did have a lot of attendance. Jim Burke, our town attorney, was there. Sanders Criscione was there. We had a number of town officials and personnel. Ryan Murphy, public safety director, Christine Scalera, deputy town attorney. There were others as well at the wake. I saw a number of town folks, and he really touched a lot of lives here, affected a lot of people, and I think it's appropriate that we do something to memorialize him, and we'll have to figure out where and when. I'm thinking not too long, like a month from now. I've thought about police headquarters. I've thought about Good Ground Park. there might be other, suitable locations. I think that's something that we're going to work on, and if people have suggestions and want to help put that together. It's really a remembrance, but a celebration. Really a celebration of a life dedicated to service, to protecting others, and he'll be long remembered. So, anybody else on that unfortunate, the tragic news about Chief Skrzynecki?
It was an impressive showing of support for the man's life and his accomplishments yesterday in Nassau County. Of course, Southampton Town was figured prominently in Nassau County. They were there to enforce. We had police commissioners from New York City, Nassau County, Suffolk County. Of course, we were there, and it was a truly a fitting send-off to a man who dedicated his life to public service and protecting the safety and security of those in our community. And like I've said before, and I think we all agree, we will miss him. And he has also left us in good positioning, I think, in our police department. So,
Absolutely. His son gave such a terrific speech about his father's life. We learned so much about him. Never knew he was a surfer dude. And I never knew a lot of things about him. But his son kept saying that, he did what had to be done, which to me translated to do the right thing. And he always did the right thing wherever he was, especially for the town of Southampton. The tears at the funeral were overshadowed by the pride of actually knowing such a fine and dedicated man. It really struck me that it was like one big family there saying goodbye to just one person who had the same kind of impact on everybody. I thought it was terrific.
it was.
The son said that, however much he meant, and how well respected he was by the community, he's 10 times that as a father, which really, it's hard for me to imagine, because I hold the guy in such great esteem that to even go beyond that as a father really tells you something about the individual. Anyone else on it? I do want to thank Captain Kiernan, who, through Chief's illness and absence for an extended period, has really done I think a great job in running the department, and we played a significant role in these preparations and in supporting the family, and even when he was in the hospital and transported for end-of-life care to his home, we had a presence there, and the family was very, very grateful for everything that the town, and particularly the police department, has done. So I just wanted to thank Captain Kiernan for leading that effort. It meant a lot to the family. Jim, did you want to say something?
No, it was just the same. When I was speaking with his daughter, Catherine, she had mentioned that her dad had been asked throughout his career, how he treats women with such respect, and NYPD Commissioner Sewell is a product of that, that he was her mentor, and he had said to people, it's because I have a daughter, and you see that when Catherine, how wonderful a young woman she is, and that just goes to the impact of being a dad, and that he's 10 times more a dad than he was as a police chief, and of course that's hard to even imagine, but it says a lot about him, I thought.
Yeah. In the eulogy, you really also learned about the tragedies that he endured and faced. His, the love of his life, his high school sweetheart, dying at a very young age, and having to raise Scott as a single parent, and Mary Ann's accident, and and I'm sure that made all that makes you stronger, but it also probably reflected how he approached the world in tragedy and gave him a lot of compassion, I think, for those in need.
Sure. Absolutely.
He was always concerned about mental health issues, within the department, wanted to make sure that the his men and women were okay, that he understood the stresses of police life, and particularly over the last few years, and some of the issues facing police officers and the community, and wanted his officers to be the best that they possibly could be and have the equipment and the training, but also their mental health status was something that I know was important to him. And maybe some of that thinking came out of, some of the difficult times that he had to go through.
Sure. Looking out for the underdog, definitely. I think all the groups, I know Minerva was on our chief search committee, and, I know that she thinks the world of him. And as like she said, even in her statement, she said, we didn't always agree, but he was there to listen, and he took everybody's point seriously, and digested it, and took it under serious consideration. Lisa Ivino, right? She was there yesterday as well. People who didn't necessarily have to look at things from sometimes a different point of view, but he would accept that. He would look at that, and he would never shut anybody out. I think you're right.
I remember when,
One of-
I might have said this the other day, but when we first hired him, and I was concerned that this wouldn't be challenging enough. Like, we were such a small department compared to the one that he had run, but I always felt that he thought this was the most important job in the world, that our department was the most important department, and he gave it every ounce of his being to make it the best department it could be, and got up every day eager to go to work and improve things in Southampton. So even though he may have been a big fish in a relatively small pond, he certainly treated us like we were the most important pond
He talked
in
about
the world.
He'd be working late into the night, and if he was staying at his house out in Stony Hill Road,
He
would have to
called
try
me
to
at all
find a
hours
place
of
to
the
eat.
night.
Yeah.
It's
It's hard to find a place, from him. from
I
the
never felt
police
out of the
department.
loop with
Everything's
him.
closed.
Yeah, everything's closed by the time he was driving home at,
To your point earlier, Jim, about some of the people that he worked with, not only was law enforcement represented yesterday at the funeral, but a lot of the people who worked with the town, not necessarily on the same side of the table with the chief, were there. Lisa Vittino was there. She
Yeah.
went to his funeral, and she was
part
one
of
of our
our clerk
constituents
committee.
who asked some hard, appropriate questions, and had a great respect for the man, and they were in contact. He had her phone number and would ask her, and that's the kind of man that he was. He would reach out to all members of the community and solve problems.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I will keep you guys updated on plans for this memorial, and anybody wants to help, just please let me know. So other updates. So the listening sessions we've been doing in Hampton Bays, we had moved it from 4 to 6 last night because it moved it from 6 to 8. It actually went from 6 to 10. Ended up being 4 hours. Again, it was packed. We did it in the full senior center room because the smaller room would not have held everybody. There had to be at least 75 people there. I'm not doing the timer thing, so letting people speak. Some people got frustrated because some people went on more than 3 or 4 minutes. So some people didn't say anything at all. And Jenna Shearer, our land management and development administrator, land planning and development administrator, was there. We answered some of the questions that people asked, but we were there primarily to listen, so we didn't give lengthy answers, and we tried to get through the list. Some interesting voices, some young people came last night, talked about how difficult it is for young people in the community to buy a home, and some of the desires for revitalization. And some people from the first work session, I'd say about 25% of the people who spoke the first time spoke again the second time. But the other 75% were new people. And, so I've been listening. I need to report back to you guys some of the things that I'm hearing. There are definitely concerns. There are a number of people who are raising the issue of the appeal, saying that you're listening to us, yet you're appealing the original zoning changes, the DOD. Isn't that disingenuous? So they're asking me to communicate with you guys that there are people who want us to not continue the appeal, not perfect the appeal, and allow this new process to emerge in a product that's more reflective of the desires of the community. A lot of concerns about density, more people and more traffic, concerns about the heights of buildings, concerns about property taxes, kids in the schools, the typical thing you might expect. Some people saying they like things just the way they are. A lot of people talk about beautification, they clean up things, but not too much new. A lot of concerns about the cemetery, proposed cemetery, the location for the sewer that was discussed and studied to some degree. The property on Cemetery Road, that a lot of people saying that they feel that that's not an appropriate site. Because, for different reasons, but some concern that it's too close to downtown, that there'll be smells associated with it. But a lot of people saying that there's a cemetery there and people go to remember their relatives or friends who are buried there. And, if there are smells associated with it because it's so close, it would change that experience. And it's sort of, sacred. And it's a time when they can remember their relatives, and are asking us to not consider that property, to find another site, find a better site. So I have actually very lengthy notes. I probably have 30 pages of notes at this point between those two sessions. And Margaret Freelander, who's secretary for the CAC, has been also taking very detailed notes. She's making those available to anybody who wants to see them. I have been getting the emails of everybody attending, so we have a way, I think, of communicating with people. There'll be another listening session next Thursday, 4 to 6. I know we can't all attend, but if we can kind of coordinate, I think it would be important for you guys to go. I know, Rick, you were at the last one. I told the group that I'm working on this survey, because I do want to have as many people weigh in. And even though we have 75 people in the room, demographically, it may not be representative of the whole community. We know that there's a large Latino population in Hampton Bays. Although last night was more diverse than the first group, it's still not very diverse. It's mostly, I would say probably mostly 60 and older and mostly white. So though I had one person there who was about to celebrate her 98th birthday, and we also had some young people there, so which was nice to see too. So this survey, I'm going to go over the draft of the survey with the whole group. I like to get a copy to you guys too, to get some comments. I want to make sure that we're asking the right questions, that there's no bias in the survey, and it's going to give us useful information. And I want to mail this out, postage paid, basically. So if somebody wants to return the survey, they won't have to spend 50 cents on a stamp. It'll be, prepaid postage. And then, try to get a clearer sense of if the community feels like they want revitalization, what do they want in revitalization? Is downtown meeting their needs?
Well, that's a question I wanted to ask you. Is that I'm hoping that that's an overarching theme in these listening sessions, that people say, are people asking for revitalization and rezoning in downtown Hampton Bays? However, they have caveats, the location of
Right.
the sewer treatment plant, the height of the buildings, the density, and other valid issues that they bring up. But is the general consensus that they would like the town to move forward on revitalization of downtown Hampton Bays?
And that question I can't answer yet. The
Right, so
survey
that's
will
the
help me
survey.
answer it.
Okay.
I think there's, consensus around things like beautification. Bury the power lines, more awnings, clean up buildings and things like that. There's a lot of concern about increasing the density at all. I think people are understanding that if we don't change the zoning, there still will be residential development in downtown. But the delta between new zoning and current zoning, I don't think they really want to see large changes in the population, and they're concerned about, a lot of people talk about how bad the traffic is, and how could you consider making that worse. We haven't talked about traffic mitigation yet, and some of the ideas, so some people have proposed things like roundabouts or more municipal parking and things like that. There's some consensus around things like people would love to see the movie theater stay, though I don't think that will happen, but maybe some sort of performing arts center. People like the idea of more walkability, sidewalks, and things like that. What else? Amenities. People have talked about ice skating in the winter or roller skating and things like that. Commercial development, there's no clear consensus in terms of what commercial development is still needed. Some people think they have everything that they need. Others think that they want bookstores and cafes and things like that. So I need more time to figure out where the community is on that. It's clear that there's no one community in Hampton Bays. There's summer folks who, maybe have a little more money in their pocket and maybe do want more, boutique shops and things like that. There's year-round folks who, are afraid that those shops are gonna push rents up and push some of the mom and pops out. And they, they'll lose that sense of a working class community. They want the kind of shops like the ones that sell, fishing lures and bait, and the hardware stores, and places like your store, that sort of meets the needs of the year-round working class. Some people have said Hampton Bays isn't ever going to be Sag Harbor, isn't ever going to be Southampton Village, and they don't really want it to be those things. They want it to serve the needs of that year-round working class community. But there are different sectors of the community, and trying to make downtown serve all the sectors, I think is going to be the challenging part. And I'm not sure we got it right the first time with the DOD, where we sort of did one approach to the whole of downtown. So, there's a lot of work ahead. And right now, I'm just trying to get a better sense of what that community consensus is. You're never going to get 100% of the people. That's clear. Can we start to get 70 or 80%? Can we get a plan that most people like? And it's probably going to be quite a bit different, I think, than the plan we got approved. I think it's going to have to be scaled back. So,
Yeah, the form-based code needs to be put away, and the idea of a revitalization where we kind of improve this large amount of town is now, what are we going to do to improve downtown? So we have to start from that end, not from the top, work our way up, and see what the people really want. The Performing Arts Theater, a little less density, a little more mixed use, some professional offices, maybe some retail. Some people are afraid of retail because all around the country, retail is dying a little bit. But for me, there are, and from what people tell me, there are other types of businesses they would like to see downtown.
Right.
We don't want to ruin the character of Good Ground Park, so those businesses or, the apartments that do face it have to kind of work in with what the look is. And the traffic is a big issue, and where is the parking? We've never really, I don't know if you've covered the parking about it would be between Montauk Highway and Good Ground Park and how that would work in, and if we have X amount of apartments, how many cars for each, and what does that do to what's already happening downtown?
Right.
Because it's very difficult to go from, Carvel to the diner in any amount of time. We heard the ambulance drivers talk about that.
Right.
And as far as the sewage treatment plant goes, as Hampton Bays grows, it may not just grow in the epicenter. We're gonna have a new diner, we're gonna have some items, even out the roads being improved, So our business district is really from Pooltastic to the diner. So maybe a sewage treatment plant that would include all of that would help us now, instead of what's being proposed.
Yeah, I spoke a little bit on the issue of a sewage treatment plant. Well, why would you need a sewage treatment plant to begin with? There seems to be some support. I'd say most people realize that modern communities have sewage treatment. They understand that it's good for the bay. I think they get that. Some people are saying that, the location that we picked is not scalable. Like it's not big enough to expand to, treat maybe all those houses by Tiana Bay. So we might want to look at a location that we could take in more properties. The dump keeps coming up. It's not a dump anymore, but the transfer station out by police station, by Red Creek Park, as that gets brought up. Not everybody thinks that's a good location, but a lot of people have said that. I don't know if it's feasible because you got to pump the effluent a long way. But there's a couple other properties we could look at. There's not going to be a perfect property, but if we're looking for something that could handle more of Hampton Bay's nitrogen loading, then the cemetery property is probably not a viable site because it's very limited in terms of its size. So, anything else on downtown?
No, just that I am working on bringing more of the teachers and the chamber and more of the community to your meetings. A lot of the, it's a very diverse community in the school, so if we get a lot more of the teachers and aides to your meetings, they'll have a different point of view on that too. And maybe at some point, we can actually invite some of the Hispanic businesses to come down, directly, instead of just putting a flyer out there, but actually give them a call and say, hey, join in, and, we want to hear from you.
On the Hispanic thing, the survey that we're going to send out, we'll do in English and Spanish too. So I will ask the question, and right below it, we'll ask it again in Spanish. And Christine Taylor did come last night. She wasn't there at the beginning, but she's this from the Chamber of Commerce wants to also bring some of the business operators and business owners, property owners, into these listening sessions, which I think is good too. So I'd like to get the listening sessions to go beyond just, each person saying their piece. I'd like to start asking some specific questions, whether it's on sewers or on traffic or property taxes, whatever it might be, and getting some input on specific things. So we have a few more to go in October. Might have to go beyond October, I fear, because these are going quite long. And I had calendared 2 hours last night for it. I didn't get home till after 10 and hadn't had dinner. I'm willing to listen as long as it takes, but it's taking longer than I anticipated. Right. So.
Well, as a Hampton Bays resident, store owner, I appreciate you making the effort to listen to everybody, because it is really important that we get it right. So I appreciate it.
I'm still hoping there's a time where it maybe does thin out some, where we can sit around the table with some maps and, sort of show me what you're thinking, show me, where we have that GIS system too, which would be nice. I could show people some of the maps as well, so they get a sense, can look at aerials and things like that, or even leave the senior center and go for a walk downtown and have a conversation about downtown. And, we do have historical concepts coming in, and I think it's important that they come to some of these meetings So if they're going to do some renderings based on what the community is saying, they need to fully understand what the community is saying, so.
I like a community charrette.
Yes.
I think it's a good way to get consensus of the community. We can do a couple of sessions, and, I mean, if we're talking about, putting maps down with, there are people who know how to do this, and we can get consensus in the community, and it also serves to educate the community on zoning, on what can be done currently as compared to what they would be asking for. So I think that would be quite useful.
Some people were asking for some sort of work session in Hampton Bays with the town board. And I think that they're concerned, because they would say to me at these listening sessions, can the town do this? Can the town do this? And I would say, I'm not the town. There's 5 of us, right? I can only speak for myself. So
Right.
I think they're looking for, they're looking for more of the town board. And I know we can't have a quorum there, so, at these listening sessions. So maybe we can schedule a work session,
You could schedule an informational meeting with the
You
town
know.
board.
and, it would be nice to get this survey out there and have people respond by a certain date, and then maybe discuss the results of that survey at a work session. I think that would be good. So, if we get the survey out there in the next few weeks, I could see sort of by the end of November, maybe having some results, or early December. So, maybe we could do a work session early December or something like that,
Have to be in the evening, I would think.
probably.
I think there's 2 or 3 items too, I think that's pretty clear that people are against in the old form-based code. So maybe if we as a board agree that those items go away and then take it from there, because now they're, half of the people are complaining about the same thing. So-
Right. Nobody wants 4-story buildings.
Right.
Even 3-story buildings, they're not crazy about. Most people don't want 3-story buildings. Though they may not understand that there's already 3-story buildings in downtown Hampton Bays. I think Duran's, I think, is sort of 3 stories over there. Some of
It's got a basement.
It's got a basement, yeah.
It goes down.
It goes down, but there's a couple buildings though that do have, 2.5, 3 stories. There's 3 habitable floors. Not too many, but some. So, but if there's, maybe as it develops, nobody wants to see like a line of 3-story buildings, but maybe 1 or 2 here or there. But there seems to be consensus, they'd like it to be 1 and 2-story. That's sort of what I'm hearing.
That's what they have now.
Yeah, it's what they have now. Yeah.
We need to hear from them. Right? I'm glad you're there.
Trying to think of anything else that just seems to be consensus on. They don't really want more density, more people.
Mr. Supervisor, you do have an exec session item before you have to leave at 12,
So, okay, yeah, all right, so thank you, Candace, for keeping us on schedule. So is there anything else?
Just have a quick update. Saturday, the 15th, tomorrow, the Youth Bureau has a Stuff the Bus event at Stop and Shop in Hampton Bays. It's from 9 to 3. They're collecting non-perishable items to give to the local food pantries.
There's a hearing on the 2023 preliminary budget scheduled for Tuesday, 10/25 at 6 PM. It'll be here as well as hybrid, and again, October 25th, hearing on the preliminary budget, 6 PM. There we go.
And today, the Southampton Town Police Force is having one of their outreach programs called Coffee with a Cop. And that is this afternoon from 1 to 4. And for those of you who are listening to you live, thank you. And it is today from 1 to 4. And that is at the One Stop Flanders Market and Deli on 730 Flanders Road, Flanders.
Okay, so we have some executive session items, and I think we're going to split this executive session into 2 halves, because I have press sessions at noon, which is, I think it's a community housing type of forum. And that's here in Southampton. Where's that at?
The steak and sushi?
Union Steak and Sushi, the old public house. So, for executive session, we have acquisitions, property acquisitions. We have I guess confidential legal advice, and is there anything else for executive session? Do we have personnel
No, not this week. Next week.
next week? Okay, so I will make a motion to end our work session and go to executive session on those items.
Second?
Seconded by Councilman Scavone. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, we are closed.